Hi there, I'm going to talk to you about UA Fanthorpe's poem Not My Best Side. Most important thing that you need to know is that it's based on the painting by Uccello in 1470, so go away and Google that first. You need to kind of see the image of what Fanthorpe is looking at and interpreting in order to make her poem. So essentially it's a painting of St. George slaying a dragon and saving some kind of princess or damsel in distress, and essentially Fanthorpe uses that as a source of stereotypes which she can then kind of mock and undermine through the dramatic personae of her three speakers split into three stanzas in the poem. So we're just going to look at each one individually. So firstly, and kind of starting from the title, she picks the character of the dragon and particularly explores vanity. So immediately, the title is repeated in the first line, and we're exploring the idea of the dragon's vanity, not my best side, as if the dragon is a supermodel, for example. It moves on to then mock really the art world and the idea of the painting as obsessed, as kind of lacking in accuracy or thoughtfulness in the way he's presented the dragon. It comes across as very kind of likeable in its humour by using quite sophisticated language. Fanthorpe makes the dragon sound quite sort of sophisticated and civilized rather than a monster. I think especially the use of parenthesis on lines 7 and 8, what, after all, are 2 feet to a monster. That's very much mocking something that the artist has missed off as some kind of stylistic choice, and kind of portraying the monster almost as a victim of the artist as much as they are of the dragon slayer. If we look at the end, the dragon's attitudes to his death again is quite vain. I don't mind dying ritually, but I should have liked a little more blood to show they were taking me seriously. So she's very much picking up on the idea of a monster actually being quite civilized, but also the idea of its death being something that is acceptable and ritualized, but doesn't feel that it's been made the star of the show. So we have a juxtaposition between our expectations of a beast and the reality in the poem of the dragon being quite sort of funny, witty and clever. Perhaps Fanthorpe is leading us to question what is a monster, and really kind of think about the idea of kind of monsters and beasts in literature and myth. Then we move on to the idea of the damsel. So Fanthorpe takes the very stereotypical image of a damsel in distress, a sort of princess in need of being rescued, very much modernizes that female figure. So if we look at just the beginning of stanza 2, the syntax and the lexis is very modern. It's hard for a girl to be sure if she wants to be rescued. So Fanthorpe is immediately challenging that stereotype and then moving on to kind of very modern cliches such as if you know what I mean, nicely physical, that sexy tale. And really the sexualizing of it is one of the ways in which the woman is totally transformed here. So Fanthorpe is turning the damsel in distress really from a sort of female victim, so from prey to predator, and making her the most sort of sexualized and therefore powerful figure out of the three. Which obviously is going to make the audience laugh because of the kind of bestiality of it, and just kind of points out really the ridiculousness of the situation. Why has a dragon captured a girl? What does he actually intend for her? And I think this becomes even stronger when we get to the girl's perspective on the rescuer, on George, who is then kind of contrasted to the dragon. She mentions acne, blackheads, the idea that the rescuer is actually a bit of a geek, and not really as attractive a figure as the dragon, who you could see all his equipment at a glance. So again, quite bawdy, sexualized humour to portray the dragon as much more appealing than the hero, and therefore undermine the kind of connections and relationship between these three characters. Then we move on to St. George himself. So already you could argue Fanthorpe is undermining and dismissing the hero of the narrative by making him the last of the three stanzas, and she treats him with a sort of burlesque seriousness. So she makes him very pompous, typical patriarchal arrogance, and then very modern kind of language patterns that help to undermine his heroism. So you see that particularly in the lexis, like diplomas, dragon management, virgin reclamation. They're all meant to make them sound much more technical than heroic. The horse and the spear are made to sound like gadgets. And then it becomes much more explicit in the second half of his stanza in terms of the stereotyping and the social ideas. So you have George asking, so why be difficult? Don't you want to be killed and or rescued? And the and or there makes it sound very ambivalent. You know, it doesn't matter who is killed or rescued as long as the sort of patriarchal authority that he represents continues. And Fanthorpe's argument is most explicit in the next question. Don't you want to carry out the roles that sociology and myth have designed for you? And I think that suggests that while she's focusing on myth, it's the sociology that's more important. The poem is undermining these roles of hero, of male rescuer, of female victim, and of the sort of monstrous, demonized dragon. And then it's linked to very modern concerns such as job prospects, in order to really mock and undermine the kind of fantastical, epic image of the painting. And his arrogance is totally clear in the final lines, where none of this particularly matters because you're in my way. So we have Fanthorpe pick out these three stereotypes from the image, modernize them, and completely undermine their sort of pompous, heroic positions in order to lead us to question some of the sort of social structures around that.